Our next speaker is a globally recognized physician and scientist specializing in advanced regenerative and longevity medicine. He helps patients overcome chronic illness, recover from injuries, avoid surgery, and slow the aging process, often when traditional approaches fall short. His precision and results have made him the trusted physician to royalty, world champion athletes, and A-list celebrities, as well as industry leaders around the world. As founder of Eternal Health, he continues to challenge outdated medical thinking and pioneer practical science-led solutions for long-term health and performance. Welcome to Dr. Adeel Khan, returning to share how precision regenerative medicine can clean the blood, restore cellular health, and slow the aging process. Please welcome Dr. Adeel.
Hi. Thank you. All right, so I think this is a very different audience. I was just speaking yesterday here too, but it was a YPO, so it's good to see different faces. So this will be hopefully new information for everyone. And as she said, I'm a regenerative medicine doctor, and I did my training in Canada, which is good because in Canada, it's covered by the government, right? The treatments are covered, so there's not really much insurance and private billing. And so I was trained as a doctor to do what's best for my patients, not necessarily what's going to make me the most money. And so that was always my philosophy. And now I am in private medicine, but I almost felt like I had no choice because unfortunately in Canada, the regulations there, I was doing a stem cell clinical trial for arthritis, like chronic pain, but you can only use certain type of stem cells, which we will get into. And so I felt a little bit limited, and I couldn't help my patients the way I wanted, and hence why I'm in Dubai. And so this is kind of the big, I guess, discovery it's interesting. I'm not the one who discovered them, but I'm the one who discovered the scientists who discovered them, which is basically meaning the scientist, Professor Mari Dazawa, she discovered these amazing stem cells in 2010. And unfortunately, there was a lot of scientific suppression. This was partly due to politics. She's a woman. Japan is a very patriarchal society. There also was the fact, there's another professor named Yamanaka who had another stem cell product, and he won the Nobel Prize. So his work just overshadowed her work. So no one really knew about mu cells. Like literally, like science, like if you ask most doctors or scientists, they were just like, what's a mu cell? And it was just like, and so when I found out about it a few years ago, I was kind of blown away about the research she's done, over 200 papers and clinical trials. And the biggest groundbreaking finding was that these are what are called pluripotent stem cells, meaning they can turn into any cell in your body, but they do not have the risk of cancer or tumors as do other pluripotent stem cells. So for example, if you were to use, you've probably heard of embryonic stem cells, right? Like where they take them from aborted fetuses, and that's obviously controversial and has ethical issues, but there are some clinics offering that. And that actually has a risk of cancer or tumors, whereas mu cells don't. And that's one of the properties that makes them very unique. And then the other problem with traditional stem cells is when you put them in the body, most of them actually die. So most of the clinics in Dubai and around the world actually are still using what are called mesenchymal stem cells, which are not bad. They're very safe, but the problem is their efficacy is not always quite there. That's because most of the cells don't survive. Some of them can even be harmful because there's different cell populations. So this way you're standardizing the cell population. You're isolating for the best. I always like to say it's like the Rolls Royce of the stem cells, right? You're picking the best of the best stem cell, and then you're isolating and you're standardizing it so that you have 99% purity of just mu cells, and then they can be sourced from anywhere really. Like so, they're in your own body right now, right? They're in your bone marrow, they're in your fat, they're circulating around in your blood, so you can get them from your own body. But if you think about it logically, would you really want your own stem cells, especially if you're after age 40, because your body's gone through a lot of DNA damage and stress, right? So as you get older, your stem cells get older and they don't work as well. So would you rather have your stem cells or young, fresh source of stem cells? And I think most people would think young, fresh. And then of course, when you think about donor stem cells, people naturally get concerned. Isn't there a chance of rejection, or isn't there a chance of something happening with foreign DNA? That's where mu cells are very interesting too. They have this ability to be immunoprivileged, and that's because they express the same protein that babies express to prevent the mother's tissues from attacking the baby. So how cool is that? It's like Mother Nature's almost like, supernatural cell that your body will not attack, and it recognizes it as a safe cell that's put into your body, even though it's from a donor DNA. So that makes it, those are some of the key characteristics, and this is just to compare, between the two, because mesenchymal stem cells, like I said, they're kind of the ones that almost everyone is using in Dubai and most of the world. And I was the first doctor to really talk about the mu cells outside of Japan, and so that's kind of what led to a lot of, I guess, notoriety and stuff. But in terms of the key differences, so we talked about the potency, so the fact that it's pluripotent, meaning it can turn into anything in your body, right? Versus regular stem cells are only multipotent, so they can only turn into fat, cartilage, and bone. So they don't have that same ability to turn into like neurons or heart or liver or kidney, so many other types of tissue. And then the homing mechanism is also very interesting. What that means is that the mu cells are almost like, they're like an emergency repair crew that recognizes a signal when you have tissue damage, and they go there and find it. So even when you do intravenous infusions, they can find their way to the brain or the heart, as has been shown in clinical trials in Japan. But it almost sounds magical, right? It's like, how can a cell know where to go? But your body has these mechanisms and signals that the mu cell can recognize, and then goes there and repairs it. So that's one thing that makes it also very unique. And then, we talked about the immunoprivilege. So HLA-G is an antigen, the protein I was talking about, that is expressed by babies as well to prevent the mother from attacking the cells. And then the tumor risk, none. And regular stem cells are also safe, as we said, but they're not as effective. And the other big thing is, with the regular stem cells, they just evade your immune system for a period of time, but eventually your immune system gobbles them up. So they're cleared up eventually. So they're not actually, the old stem cells shouldn't even be called stem cells. They should be called signaling molecules, as has been, there's papers published on that, but unfortunately everyone still calls them stem cells. So all these clinics that are saying we're offering stem cells, they're not actually offering real stem cells. And that's why, that's what I've been trying to educate people on. It's not, those are not stem cells. They cannot turn into different types of tissue. They're just signaling molecules, which can help reduce inflammation and get your own body stem cells to come recruit. But they are not a true stem cell in and of themselves. So those are really important things to understand about the mu cells. And this is just to highlight some of the clinical trials that they've done, like for stroke, ALS, and MI is heart attack, and then spinal cord injury and epidermal bullosis, which is a really severe skin condition. So anyway, it's not like they've done, so these were all done in Japan. And the biggest thing is, I think, adverse effects, right? There's no serious adverse effects. And so that's the big thing about these treatments, they're safe, right? And so because they're safe, we can use them for so many different things. So of course, there's the intravenous kind of infusions that you can do for like long COVID, for people with autoimmune conditions, people who are suffering with fibromyalgia, like conditions where the traditional system just doesn't have good solutions, right? When you have these chronic diseases that affect multiple organ systems, a single drug is not going to solve that. That's just not, those are all symptoms, those are all Band-Aids. And so we need to get the whole system to work together as a whole, and that's what the infusion of these stem cells do. They actually reset your immune system. So I'd like to kind of say they're kind of reprogramming your cells back to a previous state. They're changing the signaling, right? Your body is all about signals and communication, and those signals get distorted when you get diseases or as you get older. When you get older, the signals that are being sent are distorted, and over time, that's one of the things that drives the aging process. It's actually a hallmark of aging. It's called altered intracellular communication. So essentially just meaning your body isn't communicating the way it used to when it was young. So maybe we can restore that young communication system again. And that's kind of what the mu cells are shown to do. And of course, cosmetics and longevity, which we'll go into a little bit. This is just kind of just to give a little background on people if they're curious on the process. It's just kind of like how do we want to make sure the body is ready for the stem cells too. If you're eating garbage and you're not sleeping properly and you're just hoping the stem cells are going to be a miracle cure, that's really not what we're trying to do. That's not our goal. And that's why I work with functional medicine and other doctors, like I don't know if Dr. Mai is here, but oh, you're representing, oh, yes, yeah. Dr. Mai is a doctor in Abu Dhabi I work with a lot, and she'll, and then I have other functional med docs, and so they'll prepare the soil for me, they'll optimize their hormones, optimize their lifestyle, get them on the right supplements, and then we'll do the stem cells, right? And so some people are optimized, right, if you're already doing it, but the big thing is, what we do too is before, we like to, get rid of some of the senescent cells, which are the zombie cells in the body. You've probably heard of those. They're cells that have died, but your immune system can't clear them out, and then they continue to release inflammatory factors. And so there's supplements you can take to help clear those up. And then that's another way to prime your body before the stem cells. So yeah, and I think I talked about this a little bit, which is using donor stem cells versus using your own stem cells. I mean, if you're 20 years old, I mean, maybe you could use your own mu cells, but there's definitely research, and this is where it also gets a bit risky too, because there's a lot of stem cell clinics where they harvest your own fat and then they isolate the stem cells from there. But the problem is, especially after age 40, there's research on this, some of those stem cells can actually be pro-inflammatory, and they can and after age 50 and 60, those stem cells can become cancer stem cells. So they can actually promote cancer. So you got to be careful, and that's where these things can be harmful. And that's why not all stem cells are the same, and it's important to understand the differences between the standardized ones versus kind of the different cell populations that people are using. So yeah, and then there's a lot of different conditions that it's being studied for, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, I mean ALS, these are all very difficult to treat conditions. I'm not saying we can cure these at the present moment, but they're being investigated, and we can, and for people who want to try experimental treatments, we have helped patients with these conditions, and it's one of those things that I think is very promising, because the mu cells have been shown, for example, in mice studies, to reverse the plaques in Alzheimer's. And so, and you can deliver them through the nose, and it can go directly to the brain. So it's not that invasive if you're just doing it through the intranasal delivery. And then one of the interesting thing about mu cells is that they're resistant to radiation damage. So, radiation can kill healthy cells as well as cancer cells, and mu cells happen to be resistant to it. So there's some interesting military applications too. So the mu cell company is talking with the military too about, some applications to maybe make some super soldiers using mu cells. So there's a lot of cool stuff. And then this is a case report that we published showing the power of the mu cells in terms of age reversal. So the big one being, obviously, you can see 13 years decrease, and you see where it's like red and orange, and then you see after it's all blue. The blue means the rate of aging is slower than it should be, which is a good thing. So you can see the before and after, how many organ systems went from aging normally or aging faster than they should be to aging now slower than they should be. So it's multi-organ system age reversal. And this is just one infusion of the mu cells. So it's pretty amazing that you can get this throughout the whole body. And the big one, inflammation and immune system are probably two of the biggest drivers of aging, right? Inflammaging. And so if you can keep your immune system healthier and working longer, that is probably the best bet for you to slow down aging and also to prevent chronic diseases. And there's so much research coming out about the immune system is very complicated, and we don't fully understand everything about it yet, but what we do understand is that if your immune system works well, you're going to live longer and you're going to have a better quality of life. And where does most of your immune system get affected by? It's your gut. So that's why 70% of your immune cells are affected by your gut. That's why gut health is so important. That's not the point of this talk, but prebiotics, fermented foods, having the right probiotics, those type of things, just trying to incorporate those into your regular lifestyle is a good way to keep your gut healthy. And then there's more advanced treatments, and there are advanced treatments that we're doing, it's called fecal microbial transplant, where you actually isolate healthy microorganisms from young donors, and then you can take a pill for like 10 days, and it can repopulate your gut with healthy bacteria. So that's kind of where the science is headed, and there's so much research coming out. When you take young poop, basically, right? You're taking young poop, and you're taking the microorganisms, and you're isolating them, and when you put them into older people or older mice, they've done studies in mice and humans, you see a rejuvenation effect on the whole body. So it's really interesting how much the gut plays a big role. And I actually think, my theory is the mu cells, what they do is they help to repair the gut lining. And so when the gut lining is better and you don't have that leaky gut as much, then the gut microbiome improves as well. So I think that's one of the mechanisms by which it's making the body younger and working better anyway. So, and so this is a scientific kind of slide, I guess, but it's really to highlight what I was trying to say, which is why do we age in the first place? I'm sure you're all curious, and I've been obsessed with this topic because I want to stay young forever and hopefully live a long time. So that's just my personal obsession. And so basically the root of it starts with your metabolism, which is your mitochondria, right? Your mitochondria, to go back to high school biology, is where your body has to convert food into energy. And that energy that's made as a byproduct has something called free radicals. And those free radicals can damage your nuclear DNA, and then they can also damage your mitochondrial DNA, right? You have two types of DNA in your body, mitochondrial and nuclear. And so when they get damaged, and remember, the DNA is instructions for your body. So when these instructions get damaged, then the worker bees, they can't read those instructions, and they start making mistakes. And then that's called epigenetic drift. And so, meaning the epigenetics is remember, the genes aren't as important as epigenetics. Epigenetics is what genes are being turned on and turned off. And as your body gets older, it makes more mistakes on which genes should be turned off and which genes should be turned on. And so epigenetic drift is one of the biggest drivers. I mean, it is the fundamental root cause of why we start getting older. And then eventually that leads to the immune system not working and other organ systems not working. And then it leads to, just a downstream effect of aging. And stem cell exhaustion is also one of the very important hallmarks of aging, right? Because when you are a baby, if you get a cut, right, you heal very fast. But as you get older, you heal slower and slower. Why is that? It's because your stem cell numbers decrease significantly. When you are a baby, you have about 200 stem cells for every cell in your body. So you have a good amount. And by the time you're 80, you only have one. So meaning it's a decrease of 200x as you get from basically infancy to 80 years old. And so if we can do something to keep your own stem cells working better, that's going to obviously help with repair, right? Because we talked about how your cells are constantly undergoing damage, and your repair mechanisms, if they can work better, then we can slow down the aging process and chronic diseases. So whatever we can do to make your body repair better is going to be net positive. And that's why obviously there's so much research going on stem cells, and it's becoming a hot topic, and there's a lot of people, celebrities and stuff like talking about it, because it really is the future of medicine, but it kind of is here now, and it's only going to get better. This is, again, very a technical slide, but the big thing I wanted to highlight is just the mitochondria, how the mu cells work, right? Because you're probably wondering, how do the mu cells combat aging? It's because they're able to target these different pathways that have been linked to aging. They can regulate mTOR, which is kind of one of the longevity pathways, where when you fast, it can stimulate that pathway, and that's why people say fasting is good for you. But it can help. Mu cells can help to regulate that. They regulate mitochondrial function. They regulate your immune system. So they have all these benefits for your body that makes them unique. There's no drug that can ever do this, right? A drug can only target one single pathway. Your body has innate mechanisms to heal, and that's billions of years of evolution, and the mu cells work with that, right? They work with your innate ability to heal. And so, just to kind of reiterate the point, I talked about this already, but the aging process of immunosenescence is one of the biggest issues. So where are your stem cells made, right? They're made in your bone marrow, right? You guys probably know, that's where your stem cells are constantly being made, and they're called hematopoietic stem cells, HSCs. And what happens is as you get older, the microenvironment in which you're being made gets distorted, just as we talked about. Why? Because your body is always going through the cellular process, right? So there's the oxidative stress, the epigenetic drift. That's just a process of aging that we can't stop. Your body always needs to make energy. And so as a byproduct of that, eventually the microenvironment gets distorted, and so the stem cells that are being made are decreased in number. They can't do their job as well. And it's the same thing with your immune cells. Your T cells and your B cells, which are like your adaptive immune system, right? They're kind of the soldiers that go into fights and help clear out things. They can't do that as well. And that's what, as you get older, you start getting these chronic infections. Your body just starts getting this whole aging process as a downstream effect. So if we can, again, I think I've talked about this enough, but the point is, immune system, if we can strengthen that and keep that healthy as strong as possible, we can slow down aging and we can fight disease. And this was just an interesting paper that just came out this year about how these were just placental stem cell exosomes. So exosomes, for those who don't know, I always like to say, if you have chicken soup, the meat part is the stem cells and the broth is the exosomes, so it's the soup. It has all the nutrients in there and the signals, but there's no stem cells. And the advantage of that is that they're cheaper, and they might be similarly effective with the right dosing too. But the take-home message here is that an infusion of these exosomes, they showed, this was shown in a recent paper, they're able to reprogram and rejuvenate your cells. So basically, like I was talking about earlier, it's called epigenetic reprogramming. So they're changing which genes are being turned on and turned off, and they're making it more like a youthful profile. So this is the holy grail of medicine, right? The holy grail of medicine is basically can we put the reset button on your body and make your whole body younger? That's what Jeff Bezos and Sam Altman are working on and putting billions of dollars on. So we'll see if they solve something. But for now, this is the best we have. And so this is a real therapy that we can do today. But there's a lot of products that are being developed for cellular reprogramming. And I have to talk about microplastics and herbicides and forever chemicals because these things obviously play a big role in how our system works. And there are two types of technologies. I think Dr. Mai they have a booth here about their in-use phoresis, which is one technology that you can use to help remove these toxins. And then Clarify Clinics is another one that we use as well. And basically the idea is that they trap these toxins, and they return your blood back to you clean. Now, do we know for 100% certain if these things are harmful? Maybe not, but all the research is suggesting that. And I think if you think about it logically, it's probably not good to have that stuff in your body, right? Those things distract, what I like to say is they distract your immune system, and they ultimately are gonna accelerate that immune aging process, because your immune system has to work harder, and it gets distracted when there's all these other foreign particles and other things in there. So if we can reduce the chronic toxic burden in your body, then we can make the whole system work better. And then it's also a great way to prepare your body. If we're going to do the stem cells or peptides or whatever treatments, then we're kind of, again, getting the soil ready before we plant the seeds. So that's the whole idea behind these blood filtration technologies. You've probably heard of, you may have heard of something called therapeutic plasma exchange, TPE. It's where they remove the entire plasma and then dilute it with albumin. That one's actually not good. And the reason it's not good is because they're actually removing the good stuff and the bad stuff, which is not ideal. They remove circulating antibodies, the glucose, so people don't feel that great afterwards. So there's things that get affected, so you really have to be careful, again, about which technology. The only two I really suggest is either Clarify or in-use phoresis, which are both available now in Dubai, and Abu Dhabi too, so you can get them luckily here. It's not available in most parts of the world still, so that's a good thing about being in UAE, just there's a lot of innovation happening here. So So yeah, this is just kind of to highlight, kind of summarize basically the OSK safer than OSK. So OSK is those Yamanaka factors. They're basically what this guy won the Nobel Prize because he figured out that when you overexpress these factors, it basically presses a reset button on the cells. But the problem was the cells go back all the way to like an embryonic state, and they have the risk of tumors. So they're too strong. So that's why that's what like I was saying. Those Jeff Bezos and them, they're all working on that with that technology to try to make it applicable for humans. But for now, this is a safer alternative because it's just an infusion of mu cells or exosomes, which can have a reprogramming effect as well, but it's safe. And yeah, so basically, the take-home message really is that these are immunoprivileged, they're stress-enduring cells, they survive better in the body, and they have this unique ability to turn into anything without having the risk of tumors or cancer. And so I really believe that this rejuvenation is not just a trend, this is the future of medicine, because if we can keep people healthier, then they don't get sick in the first place. That's the right type of medicine that I want to be part of, and I'm excited to hopefully share with more people around the world. So thank you. Yes, okay, that's that. Okay, do I open it up for questions, or do we have time? Okay. Let me ask the organizer here. Questions? Five minutes, okay.
Two related questions, I think. Thank you, first of all. Secondly, CAR T therapy, I've noticed you've posted on that. Mm-hmm. And the second part is, are all mu cells created equal?
Great question. So CAR T therapy is an engineered T cell therapy. So now we can engineer certain cells. And CAR T is basically a way to make the T cells, which are the fighter cells in your body, to work more effectively. And they can be used for conditions like lupus and cancer. And there is groups now, there's one group in Korea, there's one in Turkey that's starting to offer it that's much cheaper because the problem with CAR T historically was the cost. It was like $500,000 for a treatment, but now the cost is coming down. I could see eventually, I don't know if that stuff would be used for longevity yet because CAR T does have some risks with it, but I do think it's a promising technology for some autoimmune conditions and hematological malignancies like leukemia and things like that. And then for the mu cell question, yes, definitely they are not all equal. So that is a very good question because there are manufacturers making mu cells now throughout the world. I mean, after, not to say I take all the credit, but when I treated Chris Hemsworth, he talked about the mu cells, and then I treated the Kardashians, I talked about the mu cells, and then I think everyone now wants the mu, it's becoming a thing. And so, but the problem is that there are people making mu cells to not the same quality. So for example, there's a clinic in Costa Rica that's offering mu cells, but they're not the Dazawa. The reason I put the Dazawa is because that's the Japanese scientist who discovered them. So we only work with her because we want to use her cells, because she knows they're the clinically validated ones, they're the ones that have been studied, and there's also a lot of nuance to making mu cells. It's actually not that easy. So if you don't make them the right way, they can actually also not be very effective. And then the purity won't be as high either. So sometimes, these clinics will say like, oh, we offer mu cells, but then you get the purity and it's like 30% or something, right? So you want to have at least 70%, and the batches we get now are like 90, 95%. So those are the kind of things to look out for. You want to pass to the mic?
You know what I'm going to ask about, I'm sure. In terms of all these treatments you're talking about, you talked about preparation, you talked about preparing the soil, whether it's peptides or exosomes or stems. What preparation and how does mitochondria fit into this?
Yes, I had put a little note on the side there about mitochondrial optimization, because the mu cells, their main mechanism of action is to repair damaged mitochondria and help to transfer mitochondrial DNA. So they actually transfer new DNA through something called nanotunnels. So this is a really interesting mechanism by how they're making your body work better. So there is a test called MeScreen, which is a way to measure your mitochondrial dysfunction, which you can quantify, and you can see if your mitochondria are dysfunctional, maybe this is not the best time for you to do stem cells. Maybe we need to spend a few months on optimizing your mitochondria and then do the stem cells, and you'll get much more benefit out of it. But the MeScreen is a relatively new thing, right? Again, these things, the field is evolving so fast. That wasn't even available a year ago. So now it's available now, but this is why you have to really keep on the cutting edge of all these new technologies. But that's what I would suggest, is if you're on the dysfunctional side of mitochondria, it's better to optimize that first and then do the cells after. And there's ways to do that, obviously, with peptides and supplements and things like that.
Thank you for the talk. Quick question. If you don't suffer from any disease, what kind of regimen or cadence would you recommend for someone to use Muse cells for general longevity? Or?
Yeah, depends on how your body is aging, I guess, because we can measure your, the aging process. And if you're aging at a normal rate, probably once a year is fine. If you're aging at a faster rate, you probably want to do twice a year. So we can at least get a baseline and then decide which is the best. And there's also, sometimes it's age dependent too, right? If you're in your 30s or if you're young and healthy, you probably only need to really do it once a year. But the results seem to last about 9-ish months based off the data that we have, meaning that it's not like you do get some obviously permanent benefit, but there is a dramatic reduction in the aging process after the infusion, and that eventually does wear off over time. So that's why you have to keep doing them for longevity.
Hi, it was an amazing talk. Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. I'm a biocell mineral and facial analyst.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I just feel you nailed it in terms of longevity, because I've seen a lot of results when we work with the cells directly. But what my question to you is there any form of DNA imprints when you use stem cells?
So with the Muse cells?
Yes.
Yeah, so they go through a process called epigenetic resetting. So they're not going to be expressing the DNA of the donor. They're going to be expressing your own DNA. So the way the Muse cells work, I didn't explain this, is that they actually eat. So they're like little macrophages, which are like this immune cells in your body. They actually eat damaged cells. So let's say a Muse cell sees a damaged cell. They're going to eat that cell, and then they're going to use the machinery in that cell to know what cell to turn into, and then they're going to go through a resetting process and only express the genes of your own body. So they're not going to express the donor DNA.
So there's zero imprint, right?
No, no imprint. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
So
It's
thank
because
you.
of that mechanism of eating the damaged cells. That's how they work. Yeah. Yeah.
Should you start immediately using these methods of identification of the plasma like insurances or
Clarify. Yeah.
5 minutes when you started the new center?
No, I didn't have them. I mean, in North America, where I'm from, Inuse and Clarify are both not there. So you can't actually access them. So it wasn't something I had available until I moved to Dubai. And then I would send a lot of my patients to Europe, because those blood cleaning technologies have been used in Europe for over like a decade. So the Europeans obviously understand the importance of cleaning out these toxic burden. But for a reason, in North America, it's still not available. In North America, they only have the therapeutic plasma exchange, which, as I talked about, I'm not a huge fan of. So this is only something I've been using for the last year and a half now. But I do find that the results, especially for people who are older, the results can be so much better when you remove the bad stuff and then you do the infusion of the Muse cells. It just seems to work better.
Hi, what's the age limit that you can use this till? Like till what age?
My oldest patient is 96. So, and he loves it. He's like addicted to it. He
And
comes
how-
every 3 months, and he's just like he's like, I feel great, and he just wants to keep on doing it. So, understandably, he's 96. Now you've made him feel like he's maybe 80 or something, right? So he loves it, yeah.
So, how often would someone in the 80s and 90s do this?
Twice a year, at least, yeah. So typically twice a year should be sufficient.
And any reviews? Like, how many years have you been doing this? Or this system has been in
So I've been doing the stem cell work for about 4 or 5 years, but the Muse cells has only been about 2 years or so. So it is a relatively new thing, but just a better version of the old stem cells, you know? And what people generally report is that they feel more energy, better recovery, sleep, the better cognitive abilities like focus and memory. Those are the type of things that you see improvement on typically for people who in their 70s or 80s. And pain too, obviously. If they have chronic pain, it can get rid of that too. So those are the type of improvements you'll see. But we also measure, right? We're not just guessing. We recommend everyone do the test so then we can see before and after and actually see how this intervention is working, you know? Okay. Yeah.
When is the clinic in Florida opening up, and are they going to be offering the same services as here, or?
Yes, that's the plan. We'll be opening a clinic in West Palm Beach, hopefully by April, and we'll be the first clinic in the U.S. to offer the Muse cells. And then we are in-use pheresis is not, unfortunately, it's not FDA approved, so we won't have that blood cleaning there. But the Clarify Clinics is working on FDA approval. So from what I've been told, they should be available by end of this year. So we'll have the blood cleaning there too, hopefully. So we'll have everything, yeah. And then we do have a booth here, obviously, and then we also have a clinic across from Four Seasons Jumeirah in Dubai, just as FYI, yeah. Okay, great, thank you so much. Yeah.